Serious, who's the worst human being you've ever met? My mother. She wanted a comfortable life, so she married my dad, a doctor. But she hated the family life and she hated that she was expected to have kids. So she started to harass our father and cheated on him and, in short, drove him to suicide. Then, she cut off all family members and started to try and drive my brother and I, 10 and 12 years at that time, to suicide too, beating us, starving us, constantly repeating that we needed to die to amend the fact that we were ruining her life. When it didn't work, she put sleeping pills in our food and tried to stage a murder-suicide between my little bro and I. We survived. She went to jail. She got out of jail and immediately started to blame everything on us again, harassing us and all. She moved back to our grandparents' home, barred us from there by law decision, and now goes everywhere saying her worthless children abandoned her and is perverse and manipulative enough everyone believe her where she lives. We can't even go back to our childhood place as she has turned the whole village against us. My ex-landlord was a slumlord who had a history of taking his tenants to court over bullshit and winning large sums of money. Most of his tenants were low-income folks living in the shitty part of town and were in no way legally savvy. He eventually was arrested and thrown in prison for life due to multiple counts of child rape. A previous boss of mine. Also, he was a friend from high school. He inherited his metal finishing company from his father, who had a drug problem. I worked for him for 8 years. I watched him screw over customers, his business partner, his employees, friends, and family. Towards the end of my employment, I made a mistake. Completely my fault. I took it on the chin. He told me that he was taking $4 an hour from me for 30 days. I didn't think it was legal. This was 25% of my pay. At the end of the 30 days, if all was going well, I would get it back. 30 days went by. I asked my pay. His response was business was slow and wouldn't be able to give it back. I continued to work because I had nothing immediately planned for a replacement job. After per talk, he kept insulting me as if it were joke. I walked up to him, shook his hand, and told him to fuck off. Worst human I've ever met. I continue to wish the worst for him every day for the last 10 years since I quit. The administrative manager at a company I worked for once. He would verbally abuse all his employees. Also verbally abuse people who weren't his employees. Change processes just to make things harder for everyone because he loved it. Promise stuff, not do it, and then deny the promise. One of his employees got fed up and found another job. He went to the company and talked massive shit about the guy, even though he was a good employee. Dude lost the new job. He then wore that as a badge of honor and kept reminding his staff he did that. Do petty stuff to make everyone miserable, like cutting the catering budget in half. The company was pretty isolated, so everyone ate there, and you'd need a 15-minute drive to get food somewhere else, not to mention the time it takes to reach your car in the parking lot. He'd make that drive and have 2-hour lunches every day. Another petty thing, close half the toilets just because. Also fired most of the cleaning staff, so they were mostly filthy. Bought the worst kind of toilet paper because people should do that at home. When they're here they should be working. If there was a simple thing he could do to help, he wouldn't do it. If the thing is complicated and hard to do, but fucks over someone else, he'd do it. My father-in-law told my 13-year-old son that, because I ruined my husband's life, he shouldn't have been born. My mother-in-law stood by and let it happen. The only thing I've ever done to that monster was not put up with his abuse. When my sister-in-law heard, she called my son a liar. My son tried to kill himself because of this. That was over a year ago, and we haven't seen or talked to them since. My husband considers them dead. My stepmom. She fucked my sibling and I up. We were small children when she was introduced into our lives, and she had a lot of problems, the most prominent being alcoholism and being bipolar. She would scream at us, insult us, throw things at us, force me to eat out of the trash can, and beat me so hard I couldn't walk when I was 8. She was worse than any school bully. She would flip out when my dad/other family wasn't around, and then make us seem like the liars. I struggled to remember what was real or not real, as she had convinced me I was just imagining things for attention. I was sick a lot as a child and she stated I was doing it all for attention despite my doctors diagnosing me. If I ever accomplished something then I was her child. If I messed up or got bad grades, I was my father's child. She would take each of us out to dinner and shit talk everyone in the family, so we grew up not knowing who to trust. It ended up turning everyone against each other. We hated ourselves so much growing up. I was depressed, self-mutilated because I thought I deserved to be punished, and still have diagnosed anxiety to deal with. I still struggle making friends and having relationships. Old ex-friend of mine who passed away from fentanyl. He grew up in drug house, started smoking weed at age 7 and into meth, heroin, crack by age 14. This guy tried to kill his girlfriends while she was pregnant, tried to set people on fire, and stole my new 15 HP outboard engine right off my boat. He would often find cats and shoot them with his pellet gun when he was younger. Sexually assault girls that were only 10 to 12 years old often. He grew up in a great neighborhood after his parents won a lawsuit and got a nice house, but the bank took it since they spent all their money on drugs. When the house was taken, the backyard had so much stolen shit in it that almost half the town was coming by to get their stuff. My outboard was gone by then. People on Facebook were sad he died, but honestly the world is better without that piece of human trash. Sister's ex. Snobby rich fuck who was handed everything. Fairly certain he's a legitimate sociopath and a narcissist. Used to make fun of my sister for her mental health issues and yell at her in a very violent, condescending manner as if she is in the wrong when she would get upset about it. Said she was pretty much just something to fuck after work. He broke up with her, then immediately fucked my best friend's ex, who just broke up with said best friend about a week before. Got with her. Repeated the cycle. This girl lost it and jumped in front of a train. And his response to it was to go to a bar with other girls where he said, "Should I be happy or sad that I'm single?" Piece of shit excuse for a human being, but I still can't hate him. I don't find hatred to be a reasonable emotion. But if I could hate anyone, it would be him. My ex-wife. Since our divorce, she has taken extraordinary measures to alienate me from my sons. She blocks phone access, literally hides them from me, uses her friends and family to shuttle them around and keep them from me. She often takes them out of school early on the days I'm picking them up, so that I can't have our time together. She has accused me of spousal and child abuse over and over again. I have been arrested and investigated by Children's Services dozens of times, with not one single finding of wrongdoing. The courts and law enforcement have done nothing to assist me in exercising my parental rights. All the while, she acts like the poor, put upon woman with a horrible ex-husband. She even has the audacity to accuse me of not caring about my sons because I never spend any time with them. There's a lot more, but that's the general scope. She's a monster. Guy in his 50s, divorced, 2 daughters, one with mental problems. Always cheated on his wife, spent a lot of money on gifts and champagne at nightclubs for his lovers, ended up with the wife kicking him out. He went to live with his elderly parents, got into trouble with a loan shark, took advantage of being legally allowed to handle his 85+ father's bank account to empty it to the last cent. When his father found out, he nearly died of heart attack in the bank manager's office and had to be rushed to the hospital. Survived. For a while. Got bank loans in his daughters' names, fucking up their credit score forever, borrowed money from everyone, and stole from friends and family, including 2 little golden chains his dying father wanted to leave to his granddaughters, literally from the same room his father was breathing his last. The group of friends that without a word kicked me out of the group chat a few months after my cancer diagnosis. None of them, after I told them about it, ever asked how I was doing, therefore didn't even know I went from stage I to IV. One of them got married and all of them were there, but I never got an invite. And then 6 months after my diagnosis and 5 days before my birthday, I suddenly was kicked out of the GC. They hadn't talked to me for 5 months anyway. That was last year, and what irks me to this day is that they still watch my Instagram stories and like my FB posts. I was on a flight out of Las Vegas headed home after a week-long trip for work. We all got settled into our seats, and it was looking like Myro would have me at the window, another guy on the aisle, and no one in the middle. Aka, the dream. Right before the doors close, this guy gets on. He's probably early 20s, dressed like a douche, and talking loudly on his cell phone about how many women he slept with the previous week. He gets to our row and steps over the guy in the aisle seat without even asking or saying excuse me. Just steps right over him. The minute he sits down, he kicks off his flip-flops, then uses his feet to pull all the papers and magazines and stuff out of the seat back pocket, kicking them all on the floor so he can use that little pocket as a hammock for his stinky bare feet. I'm like, what a dick, but I keep my peace because I just want to get home without pissing anyone off. This guy is still talking loudly on his cell phone after the announcement to turn everything to airplane mode. Through the whole safety briefing we get to hear about this blonde chick with huge cans he banged last night. I had my headphones in and was doing my best to ignore him and watch a show. Suddenly I hear a commotion and there are 3 flight attendants all telling this guy to put his phone away. All of them basically shouting at him, as well as passengers in front and behind us. Dude, put your phone away. You can't be on your phone during a flight. Put it away. I'm almost done. Alright. One of the flight attendants tells him, if you don't put your phone away right now we are returning to the gate and you'll be escorted off by police. He puts his phone away, finally, but mumbles bitch under his breath. We get into the air and I decide to take a nap. I close the window shade and settle in. About 10 minutes later I feel this guy reach over me and pull the shade back up so he can snap pictures for Instagram. His arm is very much in my personal space, but not exactly touching me. I say, do you mind not doing that? And he says, doing what? I'm just taking a picture. Yeah, but you're reaching across me to do it. Please don't. He pulls his arm back and mutters under his breath at me. I close the shade and take a little nap. I wake up as we're starting our descent. I get my stuff arranged, garbage to the vase, etc. As we are coming down, this dude reaches over me again and opens the window shade. He then starts taking more photos out the window with his arm reaching completely across me. I'm exhausted and fed up, but I figure if I can stay quiet for 2 more minutes we'll be on the ground and I won't get arrested for punching this bag of dicks. We land and he stands up and tries to step over the guy in the aisle seat, but that dude says wait your turn. At this point douchebag Kevin here can see the guy in the aisle is a pretty massive dude, so he doesn't drop any attitude. Once we were out of the plane and on the jetway the douchebag takes off running and pushing past people. The guy who had been sitting in the row behind me tells me you have the patience of a saint, man. That guy was a real jackass. I just said yeah, he was, wasn't he? Yeah. He reached across you like 3 times. I Wilder punched him. Glad it was you and not me. I got home and promised myself I would teach my kids to never be anything like that guy. My stepmother. She's a pathological liar or thief, a narcissist, and a mentally unhinged infantile. Among the things she's done that are off the top of my head, she steals money from my dad, filed a fake domestic violence report, also on my dad, locked me in a hot garage during Texas summer, used my on the hook bathroom towel to clean dog piss and put it right back on hook. She puts dirty dishes away as if they're clean, and gave me a nasty viral infection. She steals our things and sells them at flea markets. She's a hoarder who trashed the house with stacks and stacks of junk. She hid me once. By the way, I was a minor during all of this, so I called the cops. They only cared about the fake domestic violence report and jailed my father who was sleeping before work during all of this, which got me kicked out of my own home where she then turned around and IDK dumped or sold my beloved dog, then refused to tell me where he was or if he was even alive. But she goes to church. She's a Christian. She's fucking evil personified. So I have to. My sister. She honestly ruins everything she comes into contact with. She beats children because she gets jealous of them from what I've gathered, and she poisoned multiple family pets and beat them too. She's an alcoholic and a drug addict and a hoarder. She's always been this way and she constantly manipulates family members into giving her money and tries to sleep with family members' so's. Last I saw her, she stalked me at my last job and tried to get me fired by yelling in my coworkers' faces that I'm a bitch, and then blew up my boyfriend's phone over not getting invited to his family's party. Not our family, my boyfriend's family, that she doesn't know, and after she was so rude to him. Then she left me a weird baby picture of me that she drew on. It was like a horror movie or something. My other one is a guy that used to be my friend. I got drunk and he assaulted me and handed me over to a guy in his fraternity that was a known predator and watched me get raped. I tried to get help and therapy and he ended up turning my friends against me and manipulating them that if I reported anything that I was a racist. They threatened me and it just was traumatic. Reading some of these, I feel lucky that this guy's the worst I can think of. Old manager from another job. Classic 1A alpha male / bro type who would go out of his way to find problems with your work, even contradicting himself in the process and verbally abusing people, and that's on a good day. On a bad day it was screaming and shouting, name calling, throwing shit around, physical threats. Also made everyone work 50 to 60 hour weeks and didn't give a shit about what he was doing to people's mental and physical health. 2 answers. David Parker A, the toy box killer. I didn't experience anything other than him being creepy, but he was an absolute terrible human being. My stepdad. This one I experienced multiple times, have been no contact for 15 years. Abusive alcoholic. Watched him beat my mother up countless times. When I got older teens, he'd come after me while drinking. Even sober he was a terrible person to be around. Currently living with his mother because he can't hold down a job. Still goes on rants on FB occasionally about how bad a wife my mother was. Shot at my sister's house with a rifle while my sister, Bill, and my 3 nieces were home. My sister being his biological daughter. Later he tried to kill himself in her house by slicing up his arms. Yet he won't accept treatment for anything. His family makes excuses for his behavior. Plenty of other things I'm not willing to discuss on the internet.